Donald Trump triumphs over Hillary Clinton to win US presidency. Company involved in the Treasury bond scam using different names to operate in the share market. Finance Minister to present the budget to Parliament tomorrow.
Hello and good evening. This is Primetime News on TV1 and Shakti TV. I am Shaheen Jarangpati.
And I'm Dasni Atada. Let's start off with a look at tonight's top story.
President Maithripala Sirisena has sent a congratulatory message to the President-elect of the United States, Donald Trump. President Sirisena in his message said that the relations between the two countries have been strengthened since his election as president in January 2015. In the message, President Sirisena also mentions that he looks forward to working closely with Trump upon his assumption of office as the 45th President of the United States of America in January, and that the two presidents can elevate the relationship between the two countries to even further heights. The President also mentioned that USA is the adopted home for a significant number of Sri Lankans and that they serve as important agents to forge stronger people-to-people bonds. Well, after months of campaigning, controversy, drama, a scandal involving emails, a video leaked where lewd comments were made about women, Americans have finally made their decision. Well, we now cross over to Mahina Bongso to give you a comprehensive discussion and details about the presidential election of the United States of America. Mahina, it's over to you.
Thank you very much, Shaheen. Well, what a day it has been, a day of surprise, a day of jubilation, and also a day of concern as the United States went to the polls and they elected Donald Trump as their next president. Now, there's been a lot of concern from world leaders, although they have sent congratulatory messages to the president-elect. There has been a lot of concern, and how would this kind of have an impact on Sri Lanka and relationships with Sri Lanka and the United States? To discuss that, I have with me here in the studio Mr. Bandula Rajasekaran, who is a former diplomat. Bandula, when you watched the election results coming in today and we saw the Republicans sweeping the boards in many states, including the battleground states, as a Sri Lankan, what was going through your mind? And as a former diplomat, what did you think would be the impact of this election on Sri Lanka's relationships?
I thought it would be good for Sri Lanka because there were issues between the former government and the Democrats who have been in power for 8 years. There were issues because of the end of terrorism. So they were very antagonistic. Now, I see a window of opportunity. With the change of the government of Sri Lanka, things changed. The Democrats reached out, including this tribe. I mean, I would say people like Samantha Power and Susan Rice, they were known as the Hawks. And even Clinton, these three ladies at that time who were with the State Department. Then things changed. Now there's a new government in the United States, and Republicans have been less intrusive towards Sri Lanka. So, and Donald Trump wants to make America great again. That means, which I see is less interference, and we can have a new start.
And how do you think the Foreign Ministry, the Sri Lankan External Affairs Ministry, is viewing this? You said that the former political establishment was having a lot of interference in the affairs of Sri Lanka. They were to a certain extent antagonized during the Rajapaksa regime. During the Maithripala Sirisena regime, we saw the ties trying to be mended and taken forward.
And things changed,
So how is the Foreign Ministry, you think, dealing with this sort of transition? Many countries have shown concern regarding Donald Trump because he does not come from this political background. He's a businessman. So he's fairly new in terms of diplomacy and international relations. So how do you think
I think it will be very easy for us to deal with it because he's a businessman. He's not from the establishment, neither he's not from the military. He's a businessman, and who is a successful businessman. So I think he'll be more pragmatic to deal with us. It will be much more easier to deal with us.
And also with regard to the human rights resolutions that were passed, adopted by the US, moved by the US, and also the United States sort of dictating to Sri Lanka in terms of the human rights situation in the country. Any impact or effects on that front?
No, I think all countries, like any other country, will be accountable for whatever we have gone through. So, like I said, the US will be less intrusive, where we will be able to deal with the United Nations. But here we saw the US pushing there was superpower like bullying Sri Lanka, so there was anti-American sentiments. So we'll be able to deal with the UN and sort this out than US trying to be intrusive, because Donald Trump again wants to make America great again. He has other issues to deal with,
and his policies are more inward looking.
Inward first, yeah, because that's what he wants to do. That's what throughout the campaign, like, he's anti-establishment. He says he wants to change Washington.
Yeah, but he's a businessman. So when we talk about the economic relationships of Sri Lanka, would some argue that this would be a plus point?
I think so, because it will be easy, because we are also doing economic diplomacy. Take our foreign minister, they are concentrating on economic. We have people like Dr. Harsha Disla, who is the deputy foreign minister, because of this economic diplomacy. So we should be able to concentrate more on that.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about the US, the nature of bullying that they have and they're known for. But when Donald Trump, if you look at his temperament, he is the sort of, international media has labeled him as aggressive, as a bully, as a person who always wants to get his own way, a political outliner. So, I mean, this is the man who would be running the United States. Does a person's character obviously transcend to the running of the states and the state's decision making as well then?
This was a hard-fought election, Mahina, but you saw his speech, acceptance speech, how he reached out to the world and to his own countrymen. He said, let's forget the difference. That was a wonderful speech, acceptance speech. And where Hillary backed out, I think she's just about to give her acceptance.
Yeah, Hillary did
concession
not
speech,
give a concession
so
speech.
there wouldn't be any issues like that, because he's not going to chase just one small country. So people will reach out, and if you look at, unlike Sri Lanka, Americans will rally around him. The systems will run. Unlike Sri Lanka, even if you take this example of the present president and the establishment giving Donald Trump security, Secret Service, all the security, whereas Sri Lanka, we remove the security. This is what happened to President Sirisena. So they will maintain their thing, the policies, the establishment will go on. So that's something which we got to learn from them.
Mm-hmm. And the Sri Lankan government, what should it be looking at right now at this particular stage where, I mean, Donald Trump hasn't really taken over as such. He'll be taking over in a couple of weeks. So what should the Sri Lankan government be looking at this stage as this transition happens in the United States?
I think we have to look at this new window of opportunity and to reach out. That's what we should do. We really don't know, unlike in Sri Lanka, whether the State Department diplomacy will change. I don't know whether it happens like in Sri Lanka. India, it doesn't happen. Maybe the same people will run or new people will come, but we have to make use of this window of opportunity, Mahina.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Bandula Rajasekaran, a former diplomat, just giving his thoughts on how this election does have an impact on Sri Lanka, and it obviously will, as we have seen in the past, how the relationship between the United States and Sri Lanka has depended a lot on who really holds the helm in both countries naturally. So we obviously will be bringing you the very latest on this US elections and the road ahead for Donald Trump. But for the moment, we now cross over to Dasani.
Of a new president for the United States, what happens to the accords reached between Sri Lanka and the US?
American firms Sandler Travis and Rosenberg, based in Washington, D.C., signed an 18-month agreement with the Ministry of Development Strategies and Internal Trade on the 29th of July. Speaking to Newsfirst on an earlier occasion, Secretary to the Ministry Chandani Vijayawardena said that the objective of such agreements was to obtain tax concessions for post-conflict countries and to expand exports with the United States of America. She noted that Cabinet agreed to the accord on the 14th of June. In order to enforce the 18-month accord, Sri Lanka must make a payment of $630,000. Professionals criticized the government's move to reach this decision. I have the agreement here with me. It was mailed to the Voice Against Corruption. According to the agreement, the government has to pay $630,000 for the services of the firm over 1.5 years. That is equivalent to around 90 million rupees.
This kind of activity had been done for years by our Sri Lanka's diplomatic mission. Now that was totally criticized by civil society and also those in power today in this government. So that is why I find it very hard to believe those who 18 months or more before criticize the last government for doing that is continuing to do the same thing. The diplomatic missions and our foreign service, they have capable people even today. If they are required to do something, they will put their best heart and soul.
I do not see any justification in rushing into areas like this. There is no necessity for us to go and repeat the things that the previous government did. How do we look at it today? We look at it today as a corrupt practice to take money from the government in an illegal way.
Sri Lanka has entered an agreement with the US Congress.
An agreement was signed to obtain advice on seeking the assistance of the Congress. Around 100 million rupees was spent for this. This was signed under the Minister of Malik Samarawikrama.
How long has it been?
Almost 4 months. The issue here is that the government has changed. Who is going to be accountable for this agreement?
A Republican administration will be coming in.
What is the government's policy here? The entire world was aware that the elections will be held on this day. The US presidential election will not change like in Sri Lanka. One could have thought that with Obama's support, Clinton would have secured the win. But the issue is that this is the country's money. Who will be responsible for this come tomorrow? When funds are being used in this manner, one must think very wisely. Sometimes this 100 million will be lost.
They came to power saying that the people's money will be protected, but seems like we are losing it.
The people of this country elected Maithripala Sirisena as president with the intention of defeating Mahinda Rajapaksa. Till then, Mahinda Rajapaksa's family and himself were misusing state property like their own and were violating democracy, attacking and burning down media institutions and murdering journalists. Maithripala Sirisena knows very well the public mandate that he got in opposition to do this. So does Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Knowing all of this, they continue to protect the rogues right before the eyes of the country. They stand by the ministers in the cabinet. No legal advice is given on investigations that have concluded. The people also have the doubt that even legal processes in court are not taking place. This must change because they are not being held accountable for the people's mandate.
Tonight we bring you yet another revelation on Perpetual Treasuries, which is at the center of the Treasury bond scam.
Over the recent days, Newsfirst highlighted the manner in which Perpetual Treasuries and Perpetual Equities purchased shares of NDB and Central Finance during the third quarter of the year. Newsfirst also revealed that both these companies are located at the same address and that the son-in-law of former governor of the central bank Arjuna Mahendran, Arjun Aloysius, and his father were listed as the present directors of Perpetual Equities. In addition, the father of Arjun Aloysius, Jeffrey Joseph Aloysius, is also listed as the chairman of Perpetual Treasuries. In addition to the share purchases made by Perpetual Treasuries and Perpetual Equities, another company by the name of Thurston Investments had also made purchases in the share market. Though it was a company registered overseas, we are in possession of details that prove that operations of this company involved Perpetual. The operational address of Thurston Investments is also listed as number 10, Prince Alfred Tower, Alfred House Gardens, Colombo 3. This is the same address from where Perpetual Treasuries and Perpetual Equities are operating from. Moreover, an individual named as K. Aloysius has been listed as the chief of operations of Thurston Investments. This company had purchased over 6.5 million shares of Central Finance plc during the third quarter of this year. During the same time period, Perpetual Equities had purchased over 2.4 million shares of Central Finance. When considering these two companies, they have purchased over 9 million in shares of Central Finance. Recently, it was revealed that Perpetual Treasuries and Perpetual Equities had purchased almost 7% of the shares of NDB. Is it legal to purchase shares of banks and financial institutions that are not banks while operating as a primary dealer in the central bank? Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, once again, this is over to you.
The Janata Vimukti Peramuna has taken steps to prepare a proposal on the central bank bond scam.
We have prepared a proposal. Immediate steps should be taken to prosecute those involved in this scam and to recover the money defrauded from the government. Arjuna Mahendran must be removed from his current position and steps need to be taken to ensure that he does not regain such a position. There is a possibility that Perpetual Treasuries Limited may take steps to take the money that was earned through the controversial transactions abroad. In order to stop this, necessary action should be taken against the assets and the bank accounts of Perpetual Treasuries Limited and other companies connected to it. Perpetual Treasuries Limited should be removed from the list of primary dealers. The central bank officials who violated their professional duties should be removed from their positions as they may be able to interfere in the investigations. How can the citizens of this country expect the government to carry out independent and just investigations on this issue when the government is yet keeping Arjuna Mahendran in a safe zone? There is a need to remove Arjuna Mahendran from his consultancy position, but nothing has been done in this regard. The nation is eyeing on the president. They are waiting to know if the president will take a firm and exemplary decision to conduct investigations. If there is anyone who is trying to protect these people, we will act against them too. The rogues in Perpetual Treasuries are appearing under different names and are trying to purchase shares in banks using different companies. It is evident that people wearing suits as well as sashes have joined hands to help these rogues. He will make a call to take the necessary steps. He just got back to the country. Give him time at least to change his suit. Yes, of course it affects us. You think we will not talk? Some even said that I spoke too much. Even last night, I spoke about this till 1 a.m. with Sirasa.
Minister Dr. Rajasekaran expressed these views last night on the Satana program, which was aired on our sister channel Sirasa TV.
I already told the President to consider the legal aspect to freeze this Mantu issue. I agree that this should be freezed. The Greek bond issue was about a sum of money that was larger than this. It is about 30 billion. I say that strict actions should be taken in this regard to solve this issue. This is a large sum of money, and this is the wealth of our country. People cannot misuse this money to start businesses, newspapers and television channels. After some time, they might even start their own radio businesses. They will use public money to do all of these, and we will just have to watch and wait. We will have to listen to them preaching about society development. It is going to be a major problem if they start talking about fraud and corruption through their media network.
Meanwhile, the minister also spoke on the large-scale fraud and corruption that took place in the recent past.
මේ ඩුබායි බැංකුවේ මේ වේක දැන් ඒකේ සමහරවිට බැලන්ස් එකේ පින්තූර මට එයි තව ටික දවසකින්.
I might receive images of the balance of it. When that comes, I will show you. When this happened and the bank called, it was directed to one of our economic experts, and he is the one who gave this to me. He received a picture of the balance. This was then brought up.
පින්තූරත් බැලන්ස් එකේ. එතකොට ඒවා ඔක්කොම ඇද්දානේ ආපහු. ඒකේ දුන්නේ රජපෞලේ එක්කෙනෙක්නේ. එයාගේ බැංකුවේ බිලියන.
He had 1.08 billion US dollars in his bank. Later, the joint account of former President, Secretary and Chairman was 1.8 billion US dollars. The minister who associated them closely had 500 million US dollars. Now what has happened? The former director of the Bribery Commission and Mr. Valiamuna went and got a private legal firm and asked for their accounts. Is it possible to receive accounts like that? They spoke to Ukraine in a diplomatic manner. The Attorney General of this country spoke to the Attorney General in Ukraine about the remaining transactions. They spoke about the MiG jets. It has been 2 years since they issued the red alert on a particular person. The red notice was issued like in a manner when it was Mahinda Rajapaksa who was in power. This was after the new government was appointed. It took 2 years just to issue the red alert. If that was issued and things had taken place in a diplomatic manner, we would have received that account.
ක්‍රමවේදයේ ගියා නම් මෙහි රාජ්‍යතාන්ත්‍රික විදියට අපිට ඒ account එක ගත හැකියි.
What is the lesson that can be learned from the US presidential election? The Voice Against Corruption explains.
America is a world power and they took a historic decision today. The world was anticipating Hillary Clinton to be president. There is a political change taking place the world over. 3 former US presidents supported Clinton. Trump had no one. He was supported by the very political campaign that he built. The people in America wanted change. They did not look at families and did not look at power. The change was for the country.
The GumAtSabi initiative is now in effect across many areas in the country, with steps being taken to launch several new projects.
We took up the challenges to building bridges, water tanks and constructing roads across the country for those who were deprived of basic necessities in life through the GumAtSabi 100-day initiative with the help of the public. GumAtSabi was launched as mark of our relentless efforts to resolve the issues of the people. We who are dedicated to work for the people took the steps to find a solution for the issues of having access to clean drinking water in the Aurora village in Gaul. I believe that our people will join this initiative that is undertaken by Sirasa, and as time passes by, we will realize that there is no work left for the politicians to do in our villages because Sirasa had finished the task and developed our villages. Steps have been taken to provide the primary school in Ralapanawa Notchiagama with clean drinking water in the immediate future. While swift construction work is underway to construct the community hall of the people of Rambava Anuradhapura, 3 water projects in Thanamalwila Hambegamuwa and Padikaramadua areas are nearing completion.
What politicians could not do for years was completed in 100 days. That is because there was no thievery involved and because the money has been spent in the
Undertaking the task of rendering our service to find swift solutions for the challenges faced by the public, we have also ventured into the avenue of increasing media literacy of students across the country. The 225th edition of Newsfirst Classroom, which is launched to nurture leadership and communication skills, was launched at the Anuradhapura Elisingha Harishchandra Vidyalaya. A media leadership and training centre equipped with necessary equipment was vested with the school.
President Maithripala Sirisena says that persons who are not war veterans attending the demonstration of the disabled war veterans is an attempt to bring disrepute to the government.
The President made these remarks participating in a ceremony to celebrate the Silver Jubilee of the Mediation Board held at the Temple Trees today. The souvenir issued to mark the Silver Jubilee of the Mediation Board was presented to the President by the representatives of the National Mediation Board's Commission.
With regard to the incident on the war veterans, if only the disabled war veterans were involved, police would not have been prompted to use tear gas. Disabled war veterans cannot behave like that. There are persons from organizations that are completely against the government. Forgive me for saying this, the most venerables, but the monks who were present there were seen at several other places during the past 1.5 years. There are persons involved in anti-government campaigns. The war veterans are not the guilty ones. However, persons who are not disabled war veterans and are solely against the government have included themselves into that and acted in such a manner that brings about disrepute. This is just an example. If those involved in an issue are only present, then it can be resolved and matters can be brought to an end. However, when external persons come into that, they take matters into their own hands and make it their battle.
State Minister of Defence Ron Vijayawardena convened a media briefing today.
Forces who act against the government should be held responsible for this incident. You can clearly see from this photo that the disabled war veterans are all smiles following discussions. So there is no way they would do this. This clearly shows that there is a political faction behind this incident. They are using the war veterans' problems as a political motive. It is clear that they have begun actions against the government by using the war veterans.
The UK government says that it will be providing £1.5 million over the next 3 years to support the Sri Lanka government's target to clear all mines by 2020.
As Sri Lanka works towards this goal, as well as delivering on the commitments set out in the UN Human Rights Council resolution, you can count on the full support of the United Kingdom in that work. I was pleased that I had the opportunity when I was in Jaffrey yesterday to visit Clinical Eye to see the difference that is being made to communities that have been displaced from their homes for so many years. I'm delighted that the UK will be providing £1.8 million over the next 3 years to support your government's target to clear all the mines by 2020.
That is a wrap of Primetime News. I'm Shahan Jarampati.
And I'm Dasni Athava. Good night.